I'm doing this presentation, so please bear with me. If I do fumble a bit, I have a lot of screens open in front of me, a lot of things I want to share with you. I'm going to be switching and changing all the time. But basically, this is really how to create and deliver. Let me make sure I've clicked on that. Effective and relevant content online. So just a kind of disclaimer, first of all, and that is it may not be the best, but this is the best for me. So I do a lot of research. I spend a lot of time online researching things, asking questions from people who I've seen do it better than me. And then I pick the ones that work for me. I would like to also stress here that wherever I see value, I'm very happy to pay for something. So a lot of the things that I use, like IVCam and ManyCams, they come at a price, but I quickly work out whether or not it's worth it for me. I know that if one presentation gets me one extra client, everything that I've paid for is covered by that. So I do tend to invest a lot of that in what I can do. Things we're going to discuss today, first of all, I'm going to talk to you about choosing a channel, how you should be doing it. I'm going to talk about the hardware that I use. I'll talk about some of the software. Then we're going to talk about your actual presentation. Then I'm going to tell you that you need to test some more, arrive early, retest it, do it yourself, play with all the stuff you can, and then talk a little bit about follow-ups and handouts. So I think the first thing to understand is when you're going to do a talk, find out what people are actually interested in at that particular time. It's no use doing a talk right now on hotel rooms in the United Kingdom for South Africans, because nobody can get there. So you've got to look at your topic and say, is this relevant? And one of the things I felt about today's topic, although my audience will be very small because it's very much a niche market, people that want to use Zoom, not just to watch and learn, but to actually present. I do know that the people that are sitting here today are hoping will get great benefit and are in fact very, very interested in what they do. So learn what people are most interested in even before you even start setting up, so you're at least doing that kind of talk. Next thing is to understand that there are different platforms that you can use at the moment. And the three main platforms at the moment are Zoom, Teams, and Google Meets. And how you decide to do, that's really up to you. But I want you to try and remember the fax machine. And one thing I want to tell you about the fax machine is try and understand that some things have value because they're rare. For example, antiques, gold, artwork, collectibles. But some things have tremendous value because they are not rare. So, for example, if you owned the only fax machine in the world, what would it be worth? Well, maybe as a collector's item, it would be worth something, but actually as a useful item, it would be worth absolutely nothing because you'd have nobody to fax anything to. The reason why the fax machine was so popular at the time was that every business and every company has it. Nowadays, if you tell someone, listen, can you fax me something? If someone says to me, Mike, please, can you fax me something? I'll say, well, I really can't because of where I live. And then they always say to me, where do you live? I say, well, in the 21st century, that's why, who has a fax machine? So a very important part is understanding your audience and what they have access to. So in a nutshell, there are three real main players at the moment in the market: Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Google Meets. I personally found Zoom first. And because I was an early adopter on Zoom, I've kind of learned all the Zoom skills. So when someone tells me that they've got a Microsoft Teams meeting coming up, I'm like already shaking my head, or a Google Meets. And I'm doing a seminar for the Franchise Association in the month, and it's being run on Microsoft Teams. I'm having to learn new skills and practice again. And it's a headache for me, but I do understand that's their chosen platform and they're using it for all different reasons. So the first thing you really want to try and do is understand what are the differences between them and why you should choose that particular platform when you go. So what I've done is I've done a little graph here on the pros and cons. Zoom's great for webinars, conferences, and large groups. Cons is if you're going to pay for your license, it can be a little bit expensive. It's got great multi-sharing. One of the big problems with Zoom is that it's limited to 100 people. So what I've noticed, unfortunately, this is a reality of COVID, is that people are holding memorial services, for example, on Zoom, where they can't have prayers or they can't have a memorial service. So they tend to hold it on Zoom. Then what happens is they hit the 100-person limit and people can't get in. And the first people who got in are not as important as the family. So there's a big scramble to quickly set this up as a YouTube stream. And it's very easy to do. So you really need to try and consider what size audience are you expecting, what kind of interaction do you want with them, and what do they have access to more than anything else. Microsoft Teams is a kind of, it's not a new player, but they've certainly upped their game, some great built-in security. The only thing that I didn't like about Microsoft Teams is once I'd loaded it, it tended to open every single day, first thing in the morning, but I learned to go into my programs and switch it off so it doesn't open on its own. Google Meets, probably the most affordable. If you read a lot of review platforms, Google Meets tends to come out on top because it does most of the stuff that the others do at almost no cost at all. And this kind of seamless integration with Google Workplace, which I'm sure we all use. We're using Gmail and Google Docs or whatever. So each one of them have their advantages. I'm going to tell you that because I am a Zoom early adopter and a Zoom fan, that's what today's talk is going to be based on more than anything, is on using Zoom. So when it comes to what you're going to use, it's basically, what am I most comfortable with? What can I find my way around? What happens if something goes wrong? What if suddenly the camera goes off? What if a sharing suddenly stops? Which of these can I fix fast and furious? And then what has my prospective audience got the most access to is always going to think, and then which of the features do I need to use at that particular time? Which ones integrate? What kind of talk am I giving? And what can I do? And then also, what can I afford? That's going to always be a big thing. So we're going to talk first of all about the hardware that you need to put together a really good presentation. I'm going to talk about your computer. Maybe you're going to use a phone, what microphones. I'll talk about speakers and headsets. I'll talk about the webcam choice you use. Unfortunately, because I've got so much open in front of me, I can't watch the chat at the moment. So if anything does come through, Tracy, please feel free to interrupt me, and then let's have a look from there. So first of all, hardware really does matter, and it is important that you have a really good computer. Now, whether you're using a desktop or a laptop, that's really up to you. I'll tell you some of the advantages and the disadvantages. Sorry, for the money, desktop computers are obviously more powerful. The problem is they don't have built-in webcams, they don't have built-in microphones. So as long as you're prepared to do all of that as an added expense and you can get it working, that's really great. Nice thing about a laptop, you can take it with you anywhere. It's got a camera right there in front of you. Just a little word of warning on security issues and safety issues. Please understand that there's lots of proof out there that video camera is on all the time, even when you think it's off. So if you are having a laptop open in front of you, particularly in your bedroom or somewhere private, just buy one of those little things that you can slide across over the camera to switch the camera off when you're not using it. You really don't want people watching what you're doing all day. Well, or maybe you do, but that's a talk for a whole other webinar. We'll do that one another time. So I myself, the computer that I've bought is a gaming computer. And the reason I went for a gaming computer is because it's got a very good graphics card. So I do a lot of video editing. I like my pictures to be extremely crisp. I'm very careful about, I try and spend a bit of time on the lighting, how I choose my backgrounds, and I'll talk about backgrounds a bit later on. So the hardware certainly does matter there. You can, of course, use your phone if you really need to, but there are limitations around the phone. For example, screen sharing, a lot of people don't realize that they have to actually turn the phone onto landscape in order to get this kind of picture. So I can always tell when someone's presenting off a phone, because usually it's down at a really bad angle and it's in portrait mode and the sound's not really good. It's a kind of, it's a last gasp. And I would say use it if you need to, but use it more if you're watching than if you're actually presenting. The one place where you really want to spend a bit of money is on your microphone. And you can see my microphone sitting over here. The microphone that comes off your computer really isn't good enough. Even my microphone could be better, but I'm not quite ready to invest in a little sound deck and play deck. So what I did was I bought this one. It's called a Dixon. I bought it from Cash, the blue one, whichever the blue one was. Cash Converters, Cash Crusaders, or the blue one. I bought it from them. It was about 850 Rand, somewhere in that region. It's good enough. It's a big jump up. My next step will be to buy a dedicated microphone with a little graphics card. All I needed to make sure was that it plugged directly into my PC. That was very important for me. I didn't want to go through a sound deck. I also found that by bringing the microphone closer and closer to me, I get better sound, but I also don't want it to be in my way. So mine's actually hanging from the roof at the top there. I'll show you a picture of my setup just now. I like to keep it out of the way, because one of the things that happens if you're not careful is you actually bump the microphone while you're moving. And I know that I can't hear it this side, but you guys can hear it that side. And it's one of those very, very annoying things when someone keeps touching or bumping their microphone. So consider spending a little bit of time and a little bit of money on your microphone. That's a really, really good investment. As far as your speakers go, well, that's really up to you. I've got a set of little Logitech speakers in front of me, nothing too fancy. I don't have monitor speakers that you see in that picture at the moment. I just want something that when I'm playing sound or I'm editing video, I get some pretty good sound along the way. So almost any speakers are good enough as long as you can hear on that side. I'd rather spend the money on the microphone than on the speakers. The next thing is deciding what to spend money on when it comes to your webcam. Now, I know that there are built-in webcams on your laptop, but they really are not good enough. They're not good enough for professional presentations and for professional delivery. So I really do suggest that you invest some money into a webcam. Now, the problem with webcams is that they're actually not much better than what you're seeing on your PC. So I found a really good solution, which is something called Ivy Cam, and I'll talk a bit about that later on. And what I'm able to do is I have an old iPhone in front of me. You're looking right now at my iPhone. I have an old iPhone that's connected to my PC via the same Wi-Fi network that I'm on, and it means I'm able to use almost any phone. Let me just grab here. Here's another one that I sometimes use. I bought a pretty cheap phone, a pretty cheap Android phone for about 1,200 Rand. Also works really, really well. I can set up different cameras on it. There you can see all my cameras are set up there, so that I can even have multiple cameras, so that during a presentation, if I wanted to, if I had a second person here, or I'm doing a cooking demonstration, I could have another camera looking down onto my keyboard, onto my thing, and I can just switch using my software. I can switch between the things. So spend a bit of time, spend a bit of money, spend a bit of time on the hardware makes a really, really big difference. So I'm often asked what my own setup looks like. So pretty much that's what you're seeing behind me. Really all the part that you can see looks like I might be in a studio. But what I have behind me, and I'm just going to tap on the wall. What I have on the wall over there are little frames that I've made with different backgrounds in them. So for example, if I want to look like a studio, if I'm doing a restaurant talk, then I'll go and take the restaurant one, hang that one behind me, take this one down, put it on the wall. These are kind of interesting pieces of artwork. I built these myself. I built these frames myself using marine ply, did the little calculations. It's about 1 meter high by 1.8 meters wide. You can find out what the print cost is. I had my backgrounds printed at PostNet in Bedford View. Go speak to Michael over there. By the way, if you want any printing done, PostNet, not Bedford View, PostNet Eastgate, which is just outside Eastgate, is probably the most efficient and the most cost-effective printers that there are right now when it comes to this kind of thing. If there's anyone else doing that who's on the call, please let me know. I'm happy to look at that. So then I built these myself. Here's another look at a little bit of close-up. As I said, it's kind of marine ply. What happens behind it doesn't really matter. I've got those little picture frames on the side. I unhook the one and then I put it up. So what you're looking at the moment, and please don't be intimidated. This is my setup. I spend way too much time on this computer desk. This is kind of what my setup looks like at the moment. It's a multiple screen setup with lighting, with my backdrop. I'll run you through some of this. First of all, there we are. Those are my backdrops that I can change as often as I want to. I've also, at the same time, a chair. I spent a bit of money on my chair. I spend so much time here. I took a couple of $1,000, invested in my chair. It's like buying a good car if you're a driver, or buying a good pair of shoes if that's what you do all day. If you're going to sit behind your desk all day, please do yourself a favor and invest in a really nice chair. I can put you in touch with my friend Melvin at Old Trafford Seating. And even as a Liverpool fan, I'm still prepared to walk in there. Go get yourself a really good chair. The next thing I've done is I've actually built myself some soundproofing. So I went online, I did some research. Once again, these are built out of plywood. Then I think they call it banting or something like that. You put behind there. I bought the cheapest toweling that I possibly could, and I built them. And on the far right-hand side there where the second hand is pointing, that's where I have another 4 of them that I put up around my desk, and they're up at the moment when I need to kind of stop the echoing that's going on at the moment. Then you can see my PC. As I say, I'm using a gaming laptop. It's very important for me. I like to use multiple screens. So you'll find that I have 4 screens in front of me. It allows me to shift between all the things I'm doing all the time. Saves me a lot of time and effort, particularly when editing. And I would highly recommend that you at least use 2 screens. You really want to put a 2-screen setup together. A second screen for your laptop is not expensive, probably brand new, about 1,200 Rand. You could probably buy them secondhand for about 600 Rand. That kind of thing will really change your life. Really do consider that when setting up. There's my little, you can't really see it at the moment, but there's my little iPhone acting as a camera. So I don't use the camera that's on the PC at the moment. There's my little iPhone connected, and I'll talk about how I set that up. There's my little microphone hanging from the ceiling, which I then bring down when I need it. I always end up bumping my head anyway, but it's worth having a good little microphone. Doesn't have to hang from the ceiling. You can have it on a desktop stand. You can move it around where you want to, but do yourself a favor, do that. Then I also always have my iPad nearby. I use that for live demonstrations. It also enables me, if I really want to actually follow the chat while the chat's going on. I can follow the chat at the same time. And then what else is there? Oh, yeah, my keyboard. So I use a keyboard and mouse, both of which are wired. I do not use Bluetooth keyboards and mouse. I find them unresponsive. The delay's too long. Everything I do, I'm doing around speed. How fast can I get it out there? How fast is the relay? So that's my setup. Don't be intimidated. You can put something together. This also didn't happen overnight. You can put it together bit by bit. First step, go buy yourself a decent microphone. That's going to make a really big difference. Next step, look at the camera. Third step, look at getting a second monitor. So in those 3 things, you've probably already changed everything about your workspace and your workflow, and that'll just make a huge difference to you. So let's talk now about some of the third-party software that I use when I'm building the presentations and everything that I do with it. The first one, all of these really do help you raise the bar. The first one is, and I've done courses on this over and over again, is that I use Canva. It is hard to explain just how powerful. In fact, this entire presentation was built on Canva. I go into Canva, I find the background that I want, I change the colors I want. It gives me 26 slides to choose from. Whatever I'm building, I can't, if you're not using Canva, you're doing yourself a disservice. I saw an advert this morning where someone used those the pictures with a watermark on them. It looks so cheap and unprofessional. Just do yourselves a favor, guys. I know I've moaned. It's to nauseam that I keep saying this. Learn Canva, invest in Canva. The next really important piece of software that I use is something called IVCam. And what I'm going to do now is I'm quickly going to just stop sharing the screen and change screens for you so you can watch my IVCam screen. Share screen. Where is my IVCam screen at the moment? This one here. Share screen. Okay, so this is IVCam set over here. And what it allows me to do is it allows me to make some changes to my own thing. So for example, I can even zoom in and zoom out. I can make sure I've got just the right cropping that I want. I can adjust the color. I can bring down the color. I can bring down the lighting. I can up it just gives me control over the image that I'm giving. That's more than anything else. And also it allows me to use an iPhone or an Android phone, any old phone, to get a much better quality. So this is one of the investments I'd make. You can find them at e2eesoft.com. If it's worth your while, spend the money, get the app for your phone, spend the money on the app. It'll change the quality of your video output tremendously. So I'm just going to stop sharing that screen and go back to the other screen. As I said, this is a bit of jumping around. So there we go. Now that's IVCam. Now another program that I actually found before IVCam is something called Irium is Irium webcam, which does almost exactly the same thing. For me, it didn't work quite as well, but if either one of those, whichever one works for you, test them before you buy them. It's really worth it. Another thing that I found incredibly handy was a program called ManyCam. And this helps me when I'm doing big demonstrations I need to teach. So once again, I'm just going to share my screen, my ManyCam screen with you. Stop sharing there. Excuse me while I do this. Go back to sharing again, switch screens again. Okay. So this is now you're looking at my ManyCam setup. And what ManyCam allows me to do is I can either, for example, just have myself on the bottom. I can transfer to something of just of myself at the moment, or I can put an overlay on. So if I'm doing a conference and I want to have my details up at any time, there it is at the moment. I can also show presentations through it. I can run a clock. I can go on the side there. Let's go over here. And I can add another camera. I can add a video. I can add an IP. I can do desktop. Where's the camera? Oh, I have to just try and remember. Sorry, there's clocks. I can run the time at the moment. So I can show you the time during my presentation, and I can move that around. I can put running time. It gives me a lot of, it's almost like having a small little outside broadcast studio. Sometimes they use a little bit of lag on the picture and the talking. So I don't use it too often, but I have my moments where I feel that's really worth it. So I'm going to close up ManyCam and go back to my presentation. Stop sharing. Share screen, go back to the presentation. So it's another program that really is possibly worth considering. Have a look at it. It's are we back on? Am I sharing the right screen?
Yes,
hello?
Mark, you're on many
Okay,
cams, yes.
So I'm on that slide. Great. Okay. So now we've decided to actually start using Zoom. I've gone through all the hardware. I've given you some software. Now I'm going to talk about, it's time now to do a presentation, what you need to do. There are certain things you need to do before you set up and certain things you're going to do on the day of the presentation. So let me run through some of the things. Now, one of the things that changed on Zoom was there used to be a little icon at the top right-hand corner, which is now unfortunately a little bit hidden away. So in order to find your settings icon, you just click on yourself up at the top there. When you click on yourself, that's where the setting button comes up. And that's where you're going to do most of the settings. That's where kind of everything you want to set up beforehand happens right now. So when you click on that, what's going to come up on the left-hand side are all those. And I'm going to run through each of these, and I'm going to run through what's important to me. So when I'm setting up the general settings for WordPress, sorry, for Zoom, there's not a lot I have to do. I like to make sure that I'm muted as I come on. I set my reminder to, sorry, I need to switch it off. My apologies about that. I need to set my reminder to like 5 minutes before the meeting, just to make sure I don't miss one. And then funny enough, I always like to pick the reaction skin tone. I think it's like just shows that you've made a little bit of effort to pick one besides the yellow one at that particular time. So that's kind of the all I really need to set up on the general. The next thing I need to do is to set up the video. Now, one of the nice things that the video offers me is it offers me a choice of camera. So as you can see at the moment, I'm using my IV cam. If I clicked on that button, all the other cameras available to me from my webcam. So let's say right now I have a little failure. My IV cam stops working. My battery runs flat on my iPhone, which is, by the way, plugged into a power bank. That's one of the things you need to make sure. Please make sure you have enough power for everything, that your phone is charged, that your laptop's charged. I know we can't have, ESCOM's not our problem, but these are the things that you as a professional presenter have to get right before the time. So there I click IV cam. I always hit it on HD. Another thing is whether or not to mirror my camera. So quite interesting. What that means is when I raise my right hand, what do I look like? Do I look like I'm looking in the mirror, or do I look like I'm looking into a camera? And it's just, it's a very personal thing at what works for you. And also if you're wearing a shirt with writing on it and you want the writing to be the right way around, please make sure you have a look to see whether or not you should be mirroring your camera or not. There is, of course, the most abused button. That's the touch up my appearance button, which is supposed to get rid of wrinkles and fun little things like that and give you a smooth skin, a little bit like everything else. Don't overuse it. Don't overplay that card because you start looking like, I mean, I see those profile pictures on Facebook, or yes, let's keep it at Facebook. I see those profile pictures on Facebook. I've seen the people in real and the two look nothing the same. So easy on the filters there. So that's my video settings that I get done. The next thing I do is I go down to my audio settings. On the audio settings, I'll make sure that I have the right microphone set up. I always do a mic test. Simply hit the mic test button over there. Listen to yourself, hear it coming back. You can suppress background noise. I kind of set it to auto. Unless you really are in a very, very noisy place, you can ask it to do it. But you will lose some of the stuff that's going on in the background the higher your noise definition is. So that's kind of on the audio side. But as I say, test before you start speaking. There's nothing worse than coming online to a presentation and watching the presenter fumble. Nothing drives me more insane than watching them unsure how to share their screen, don't know how to get into PowerPoint, haven't tested their microphones. Those are the things that take away from your credibility as a deliverer of content. And you really want to get that right at any particular stage. So moving down there, there's the share screen button. That's one of the things you really want to make sure is working. You can choose the size, full screen, test, see what works for you, play with it. I like to share individual windows. In other words, I can share an entire window, or I can just share a little screen. I can share a little cube, or there's anything I can do. All of that makes a big difference to me. But also very, very important, if you're a host, and this, for example, happened this morning, set up to join the meeting 15 minutes to 30 minutes before and test everything with the host. Make sure that they understand how to make you host, how to share screen, who's going to be in charge of chats. This whole presentation is available on a PDF. And what I did beforehand is I've given Tracy the address. So she's going to post the address a bit later on. All that kind of stuff you want to do long before the talk starts. You don't want to be fumbling in the middle of your talk, trying to find the address, then trying to send it to the person, then share it with everyone. It's like everything else. It's like walking into a meeting unprepared. The only difference now is that you actually have to get the technical side of this right at the same time as your actual presentation. So sort all your settings out beforehand. The next one is backgrounds and filters. Now, when I first discovered Zoom, I absolutely loved that little green screen. You can change your background to whatever you want. I had so much fun. I'd created videos of myself arriving behind myself, looking over my shoulder and pointing out mistakes that I'd made. I had backgrounds. I used to try and keep my backgrounds very topical, whatever was news at the time. So, for example, at the moment, I might have had Jacob Zuma in jail in the background, or I always try to do something like that. But there's a price you pay for that. And that's when you move your hands with a green screen background, or your hair, the small little particles tend to disappear, and you certainly lose quality. You get that like kind of glow around you. And I had to make a decision that it was more worth my while to use a decent camera and invest in a couple of these backgrounds that I could change myself was better than using the green screen. But at the same time, the green screen or the blur background is a hell of a lot better than showing a very messy room or a cupboard behind you. Or, for example, and you see all these little jokes, you've left your sex toys on the counter, or there's some book that you shouldn't be reading on the shelf behind you. And that's what or they're looking at pictures and everyone's looking at that instead of looking at you. So there certainly is a place for virtual backgrounds. Try not to overuse them. And once again, test them long beforehand. Your ability to use a decent background is a lot to do with the quality of your camera and the graphics card in your computer. That's why some people, particularly when they choose those green wet grass behind them, tend to kind of disappear. And then they're going, oh, I don't know why this is working. And that's kind of the last thing you want during one of your presentations. If you have a real green screen, and by the way, behind this is another board, and on that board is a whole lot of cartoon characters. And if I turn that cartoon character around, I actually have a proper painted green screen behind me. So if I do need to use green screen, it is there, then I would just click on the green screen and decide from there. So that's kind of the background there. Then just one more little trick, if you are going to use that, there's a little button on the right-hand side there with a little plus there. That's where you add your own Zoom background. And where do you make your own Zoom background? You go to Canva. When you're in Canva, you click on create thing, you type in Zoom background. It gives you the exact size you need, which is, by the way, the same as a desktop or a video, but no problem. Then you create your background, you look at how it works, you upload it there, and then you have your own backgrounds. I have a few that I've made. That was kind of a scene of Joburg through a window, which I made. This was a kind of warehouse look. I looked at different things. I had a restaurant, but eventually I actually decided that giving up the quality of the video in order to put a funky background behind me wasn't worth it. It was more worth my while to spend the money on that at the moment. So now let's talk about, we've got through the pre-meeting settings, and now we're getting to, we're actually giving the talk. And this is the kind of screen you get in front of you at any one time, especially if you're the only one there. If there are multiple people, you might get everything over there. So let's run through some of the settings here that you need to learn. And well, you don't have to learn them right away, but at least start practicing. The first on the left-hand side, that's where you have the microphone. That's quick access to your microphone. That's where you can mute yourself, unmute yourself just with the click of a button. You can select your speakers where you want the output to come. You can select the microphone that you're using. You can see I've got a whole lot of different microphones that I might want to use. I might want to use the camera microphone, or there we can see my Dixon UD21 microphone. That's the one I'm using at the moment. That's where you do all the audio things. Just a little hint and tip. I always set everything about my Zoom. I set to, when I join a meeting, that I will be muted and the camera will be off. It's my choice to do it afterwards. I've seen too many things, including, I'm not sure if you guys saw what happened at the Supreme Court, where one of the lawyers didn't realize that she wasn't on mute, and she made a very Islamophobic comment out loud to everyone, and it went out live. You need to be very, very careful. Check the mute button. So my feeling is, if you're not actually the host, set yourself on mute all the time. A quick little thing is you can press the space bar, and what the space bar does, it's kind of like on the old walkie-talkie where you held down your finger. What it'll do is it'll unmute you for the time that your space bar is pressed down, and as soon as you let go of that. So if you just want to ask one question, hold down the space bar, speak, wait for it, and then switch it off. So those are where you find all your audio settings. The next one along the line is where you'll find your video settings. That's where you choose your camera. You can choose your virtual background. It's a quick way to get in there. If something goes wrong, you can quickly go and find them there. Learn your way around your own Zoom, or whichever one you're using. As I say, I use Zoom. Learn your way around your own software. Makes a really big difference. Choose virtual background, on, off video. Very, very simple, easy to follow at that particular time. The next one is participants, and that's, let's say, for example, you are the host. That's where you can invite people by simply clicking on the invite button. The address comes up. If you've got people in your address book, you can invite them then, or you can just WhatsApp them or email them. And those of you that aren't using WhatsApp web, in fact, your desktop WhatsApp, are also missing out on something. You really need to load that. It makes interaction a hell of a lot faster, and sharing and everything like that. So there's another little one. That's where you invite the things. The next one along the one is a very important one, and that is the share button. And this is something that people tend to get wrong over and over again. Please, once again, I cannot stress this enough. Join the meeting 15 minutes beforehand and test everything. Make sure that make sure you understand how PowerPoint works. Make sure you understand which screen you need to share in order to share PowerPoint. But pretty much, if you click on the share screen, it pops up, then it gives you an opportunity to either have one participant can share at a time or multiple participants. But another important thing to have a look at is that one there that says advanced sharing options. And if you're the host and you click on advanced sharing options, that's where you decide who can share screens and how many people can share screens at the same time. That's where you decide that all participants may share screens. So if you're looking for it, that's the path: share screen, advanced options, only host or all participants. And you can much done. Once you've just clicked on the share screen, the next thing is going to be the option of which screen you want to share. Now, you can share multiple screens. What will come up in front of you, depending how you set it, is either the only screen you have or all the different options. So once again, you can see there, I get to choose which one of those things. I click on all of them, but very, very important. There's a funny little button in the bottom left-hand corner, and that's one there called Share Sound. Now, very often, and I myself included, I've done this numerous times, I forget to click that button. The only time you need to click that button is when you're sharing a video that you're playing on your computer. That's a very, so please make sure if you are going to do any kind, if there's a video built into your PowerPoint presentation, otherwise what happens is what they're hearing is the sound that comes out of your speakers into your microphone and out to them. It's very muted. It's really not a good sound at all. So please don't forget to click there on the share mute button. So that's kind of important for you. Other little settings you might want to know is in the top right-hand side, the little button there called View. That's where you decide whether you want to see the speaker view or the gallery view or an immersive view. If you want to go full screen, very, very easy to do. Most of the time, you're going to set that on speaker view, which means that whoever's speaking will pop up at the same time. If you're having a meeting with 4 or 5 people, and it's not 30 or 40 people on at the time, you might want to set it on gallery so you can watch everyone, make eye contact with people. You can watch them looking down at their phones or whatever they're doing, or muting themselves and screaming at the cats. That's very much up to you, but that's where you find the view button at that particular time. Another thing is if you just click on the more button at the end there, that's where you can record. You can decide whether you want to record it on your computer or on the cloud. The difference between that is, are you going to use up your space, or you're going to have it on your cloud and share the cloud sharing with everyone else? Also very kind of a personal taste. If you want to keep a copy of it for yourself, record it on your computer, you can always share that with everyone else a bit later on. Or if you've got a very, very big group of like 100 people, you don't want to do that, share it on the cloud and then send the link to everyone afterwards. And then finally, the last button along the way there, that's the end meeting for all button. If you're the host, be careful. Remember, someone might have made you host. You think you're leaving the meeting, but instead you ended the meeting. Just get used to what works there. Little give feedback button there. Never used that in my life. Will probably never give feedback. Doesn't really matter. I pay them anyway. They'll find out from me if I'm not happy. So end the meeting for all. That's really simple. Leave the meeting when you're ready. Make sure you're on mute. That's kind of Zoom in a nutshell, and everything you need to know about Zoom at that particular point. I just want to tell you, practice. And I say this every time I do a Canva course, every time I do a video course, I use the same expression. Your first presentation will probably be cuck. Your second one will be less cuck and less cuck and less cuck, till eventually after 8 or 9 or 10 presentations, you're kind of just getting to an acceptable or at least a good level. Please don't expect to get it right the first time. That's why you have your daughter. I've got a daughter in my other room, set up little meetings with her, and I test everything with her long before I test it on the unsuspecting public. Although I went to Highlands Boys High School, and my headmaster, Mr. O'Mara, used to always say the same thing. He'd say, and I know Stephen Meltz is here, so he'll remember this very well. He'd say in his broad Scottish accent, or Irish, he was Irish, Mr. O'Mara, he'd say, in the land of the blind, one eye is king. With people being so bad at Zoom and so bad at presenting, it's very easy to be a little bit better, but that's not your yardstick. Your yardstick is to be a hell of a lot better. Your yardstick is that people walk away from one of your presentations and say, that's the kind of presentation that I want to be able to deliver. So please work on that as much as possible. So that'll give you some idea of what's going on there. And then I'll open to questions in a few minutes. Please remember that now it comes to the actual presentation itself. You've got through all the technical stuff. Now it comes to the actual presentation and being able to present it. And I can tell you that good design really does matter. It makes a really big difference when you're able to have really good images with big text, with readable. It's all about readability. Another thing I did was I did a lot of time in restaurants. I worked with Ben from Malta. And if you ask Ben from Malta what a good menu was, he'd say one that was readable in poor light. So you need to understand that not everybody has the same really big screen in front of them. Some of them are looking on their phones, some of them are looking on tablets, some have got laptops. There's nothing worse than death by PowerPoint. Hundreds and hundreds of words. So let me give you 6 tips that'll really change the way you do PowerPoint. Number one, don't read your presentation. He said reading his presentation. But you get what I'm saying. It's when you put up pages and pages of notes and someone just sits there and literally reads them off. Don't read your presentation, the 5x5 rule. That could have been an email. That could have been a WhatsApp. You could have sent that. What people really want is they want a couple of keywords, and those keywords are supported by good graphics. So these 6 tips will set you apart. Don't read your presentation. The next really important thing about PowerPoint presentations, and try and remember this, it's called the 5x5x5 rule. And that means that I will not have more than 5 lines, although there are 6 on this one because there's 6 points. You're aiming for 5 lines per slide, and you're aiming for no more than 5 words in a single sentence. That's the 5x5 rule. And the third 5 is that you will not have 5 text-heavy slides in a row. You will break it up with imagery or a video or something like that. So the 5x5x5 rule, no more than 5 points on a line, no more than 5 lines on a slide, and no more than 5 heavy text or information slides in a row. Don't forget your audience. In some way, you need to relate your audience. I've left the questions for last. You might want to stop along the way. You might want to put something on the way. When I do my social media talk, almost after every section, I have a question time. Most of the time, people do not ask questions. That's the most interesting thing. They do save all their questions for the end. But really, don't forget your audience, engage with them, talk to them. And at the same time, don't forget that they're watching you. Don't forget that if you look down at my picture, not on my slide, if you start playing with your mustache hair, or you pick up your phone and you're looking down while you're speaking, somebody's watching you all the time. So please don't forget that although you're not live, you are actually live. So then choose readable colors and fonts. That's also very, very important. Please don't use those script fonts. Just go with very basic, easy to read fonts, something that really stands out. You're looking for a lot of contrast. So it's black on white, black on yellow, black on orange, yellow on black, red and green together never work. They're almost unreadable, writing red on green or green on red. So look at your slides and go, how are they presented? How do they look to other people? Then don't overload animations. This whole thing about, well, if one animation looks good, then 30 animations must be really great. You don't need to animate your slides. What I would possibly do, and I unfortunately, this is my first time doing this presentation. Maybe those should have come up one at a time so that you're not reading ahead of me. That's the only time I use, and it's not so much animation as fade in. But this thing of stuff flying across the screen and flying down, and then a hand jumps in and points out. I use that exactly once on this whole presentation, and that's on my last slide when I'm going to give you an address that you need to follow. So please, whatever you do, don't overload the presentations. Don't be. We're not in the 80s or the 90s. We're in 2021. It's about clean readability. More importantly, it's about the quality of your content is better than anything else. People will look at bad slides, they'll even watch bad videos, they'll even struggle with poor sound if the quality of your message is exceptionally high. So that's always going to be number one. Am I delivering quality content? Number two, am I delivering in a way that people will understand and that they can follow and it's easy to read? And then finally, right at the end there, share your knowledge and share your slides. And you'll see I'm giving away my entire presentation after, so you can go and watch it. I know it's being recorded. I've got no problem with that. Ort will post the link. If you got stuck with something, you can always come back and refer. You can either refer to my slides or whatever. So share. That's also a very, very important part of ensuring that by the time you come to a presentation, you actually have a giveaway to give over there. And then we're almost finished at the moment. And that's, I can tell you right now that if you follow 50% of what I've told you today, it's already going to put you in the top 1%. That's how easy it is. But you might want to be higher, but that's really what it is. So we've nailed the setup. We've nailed the presentation. We've nailed the follow-up. What we have is delivered a really good presentation. And that's what you want more than anything else. You want people to walk away from any one of your presentations and say, that was time well spent. The big problem at the moment, and it's with everything relating to COVID, is people are placing a much higher value on things than they ever did before. They value their money much more. And you see that when you look at restaurant complaints, or what people are expecting for their money. You see it in what people are prepared to give up. Every one of you have given up at least an hour to be here. I see we've got about 21 or 22 people. That means I've taken up 21 collective hours. I really hope I've been able to deliver value that you'll walk away saying that was an hour well spent. Because what it means then is that you'll come back and listen to me next time, and you'll sign up with Ort next time, because we all know what an incredible job they do and the amazing speakers. I know some of them are out there at the moment. There's Aki. I can see his almost smiling face in his picture over there. We need to deliver really, really quality stuff every time we present. And this particular talk was about your ability to deliver quality stuff to you. So that's kind of me at the moment. If you want to contact me, I love talking about anything tech, anything marketing, anything off the wall. There's my phone number. Send me a WhatsApp, please. I've said over and over, do not send me a voice note. Those things drive me completely insane. In fact, I don't even listen to them anymore. You're welcome to drop me an email at mike@mikesaidwhat.co.za, or go visit my new website, which I just finished building, at mikesaidwhat.co.za. You'll see how I use video there, a hell of a lot. I've got a whole section just on videos, how I use my writing. Contact me for anything. And then finally, if you'd like a copy of these slides, just pop along to https, and Tracy's going to put this in the chat for you right now. So you'll get it in the chat, mikesaidwhat.transfernow.net, DL/ from A to Zoom. So, but easier, get it from the chat. Don't try to write it down, or you can screenshot this quickly if you like for yourself. And in a nutshell, that's me. I'm going to stop sharing screens so that I can now take some questions and we can chat from there. Hello, everyone.
So, Mark, we have one question in the chat box from Sarah, and she asked if when you're sharing a video in Zoom, is the best way to do it to embed it?
Well, you can't embed video in Zoom. You can only embed video in PowerPoint.
Your presentation, yes.
Into your presentation. So it's very much up to you. If I wanted to show you a video right now, I would open the video, and then I would show you the video on the particular side. I would use another method to show you the video, and I'd share that screen with you. But if it's part of my presentation, then yes, you most certainly want to embed it into your PowerPoint presentation so that it starts off straight away as you press click. And don't let it start immediately. Click to start. Go into the settings and go to click to start when it comes to videos. And then once again, don't forget, if you are sharing video, to click the share sound button. Also very, very important.
So Mark, for me particularly, that sound button I generally set when I get into Zoom and I'm sharing, and I go to the top to share. But so important for me to know where to find that button prior to the setup. And for those of you that have not had access to the absolutely incredible Canva courses that Mark has held for us, he has done Canva for Beginners and Advanced Canva, where we've literally seen businesses and mentors design their own adverts online and share them. Please go to the AutoJet YouTube channel called Jetflix, where you can watch all the past recordings simply by clicking on the topic. Mark's social media business bootcamp masterclass will be taking place on the 25th of August at 11 a.m. And I have further provided a link in the chat for everybody to register to join us then. So for me personally, Mark, everyone's very quiet and still on mute. Such key insights, and I believe that you have upskilled not only everyone in this webinar, but most certainly the AutoJet team, who are still learning our way around new Zoom things, to be the absolute best that we can be. I see Lorato's just come on smiling, because she certainly learned a lot. Aki said, absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much to you and the AutoJet team. Everyone is posting messages of thanks. Ola has asked if you have any suggestions with regards to a microphone. And I know that you mentioned our 3 key important things to ensure that we have is a microphone, a camera, and a monitor. So maybe you can reply to Ola about that.
So Ola, so as I said, Ola, sorry. My choice of microphone was basically a Dixon. I found it affordable. You can go on to takealot.com, any of the places, look at the microphones. What you're looking for is a plug and play microphone more than anything else. You don't want to have to go through a sound box. You want something with a little bit of filter around it. You want something that gives crisp, clear sound. I would say you're probably in the region of between 600 and 800 Rand. You can get a pretty good microphone. If you're prepared to spend 1,200 to maybe 2,000, that'll be my next step. When I finally pluck up the courage, I will invest in that at that particular time. But I do recommend that is one of the first things you do, is you get your sound sorted out as best you can.
Thank you so much. If you don't mind me asking, what brand do you actually have, so that if I can get it on Takealot, I can just go type that in and just get it?
Okay, so this particular brand I got at Cash Converters, Cash Crusaders. I can never remember whichever one the blue one is. I think that's Cash Crusaders. Go along to Cash Crusaders. They have a range of microphones there made by Dixon. They've got one called the Dixon Pro, which is probably going to be my next microphone. The nice thing about the Dixon Pro is that it allows you to decide where the sound comes from. So if I'm speaking on my own, I can have it coming towards me. And as far as I know, that one sells for 800 Rand. I saw it and it comes with a really nice little stand, and it's plug and play. So go look for the Dixon Pro. I saw it at the Cash Crusaders in Primrose. I know they've got it. I'm sure everyone else does as well. To me, it's more than adequate. It's a great improvement and a really great investment to having good quality sound when you're doing your presentations.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Mark. Another question's just come through from Raymond. On the one screen share, you have various browsers. Is there one that you would recommend in terms of overall functionality and integration of other apps, example, WhatsApp, without sacrificing user friendliness, i.e. having to change tabs and such to get into things?
Okay, so I'm going to share one more screen with you quickly. I'm going to share the browser that I'm using probably more than any others at the moment, almost as much as Chrome. There we go. Share screen 3. So this is called Rage, I think it is. I can't even remember what the name of the browser. I'll tell you in 1 second. Brave. This browser is called Brave. I came across this browser almost by mistake. What I really like about Brave, and I always have 2 browsers open at the same time, and they're always different. I have Google Chrome on my one screen, and I have Brave on my other screen, which means I can have about 8 to 10 different tabs open, and I can just screen across them at the moment. The really nice thing about Brave, which I appreciate, is in the settings over here, where you can go into to being very private. It has a VPN, a virtual private network, built into it. It's very fast. It's very versatile. I haven't had any problems whatsoever with Brave at the moment. I kept coming up with problems when I was using Edge as my browser. Even with Opera, I've had a couple of problems. Firefox, I think, unfortunately, have fallen by the wayside a little bit. So if I were to recommend 2 browsers, I'd recommend Google Chrome, which is always my kind of go-to one, and Brave, which I'm starting to use more and more because of the ad blocking capabilities, because of the privacy. And privacy is becoming a more important thing when you're searching for certain things. There we are. Like if I hit there, I hit new private browser with Thor. That will automatically give me a VPN and make me almost untraceable. And you might want that with some of the stuff you do just for your own privacy. And so I hope that answers your question on my choice of browsers.
And then, Mark, a final question from Shimon is: should slides be exported into PDF before you're sharing to make it more professional?
Okay, so let me just quickly, I'm going to share screen. If we have a few more minutes, I'll do this for you quickly. Share screen, go back to share screen. So there we are. There is, you're looking at my screen with my Canva, which I use all the time. There's from A to Zoom. I'm just waiting for it to open quickly. Oh, sorry, it's a big presentation. Bear with me. Oh, come on, Zoom. This is really taking a long time. Oh, there we are. So there's my presentation. It'll pop up now and it'll populate itself. So I've obviously got too much open at the same time. Okay, we're getting closer. Okay, so at the top there's a present button. So I can actually present directly off Canva at any one time. I don't do that. There are the download buttons. So now I have a choice. I can either download my presentation as a PDF, as it suggests over there. What I tend to do is I export it all as a PNG file, a high quality PNG file. Then what happens is I'm just going to open another thing for you. If we go to downloads, let's drag this across. There's A to Z Zoom. It'll export it as a zip file. What I then do is I go and open that zip file. Sorry, I was doing a lot of video work yesterday. There it is from A to Z Zoom. There are all my slides. Now they've been exported as PNG files. What I do then is I open PowerPoint, getting a quick little demo at the same time. Sorry, excuse me, not looking at the screen. I'm looking everywhere but. Let's allow PowerPoint to open and move it across into the right screen. There's PowerPoint. I go into PowerPoint, I blank presentation. Then what I do is I go up to insert over here and I insert photo album. Once I insert photo album, I go to file disk. And I look for that particular file where I have put everything. Downloads. Sorry, it's just been doing too much time. There it is over there. I click from 1 to all 58 slides. I press insert. There they all pop up. I just make sure I have the right order. And I press create. And then what it's done for me, if I can just, I always get rid of the first screen. What it's done is there's my presentation for me waiting, ready to go. Perfectly sized, perfectly set up. And then what I can also do, if I want to insert another slide, I might come along here, insert a slide. And in this particular slide over here, I might decide that I want to put a video. So I can also change my presentation. I can move the order around. I can shift things. I built that last little overlay, get to the slide, go there, decide I want to overlay, insert word art, www.mikesaid.co.za. Put it where I want it. Can make changes to my slides over there. So I hope that helps. I don't tend to present off PDFs. I do prefer to present off PowerPoint. I find it easier because also while I'm presenting off PowerPoint, when I go into presentation mode, I can watch the slides and I can also have notes underneath. So I hope that helps.
That's so valuable, Mark. That's incredible. I actually didn't know that you could do that from Canva into PowerPoint.
Anything you can do anything, Trace, if you try.
I'm certainly going to practice after today's webinar, Mark. And wow, it's been absolutely incredible. I'm sure every single person on this call will agree that they have gained such insight and knowledge into the world of Zoom. And I certainly hope going forward that we all make use of everything that Mark has shared with us. As mentioned earlier, Mark will be joining us again on the 25th of August for his Business Bootcamp Masterclass on social media. Please make yourself available to join us then. It's an absolutely astounding and incredible webinar. And Mark shares again so much insight. Mark, we thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Always a pleasure.
And we're so grateful to have you and to have your support on the AllCheck program. Thank you for upskilling us always and teaching us, certainly today, how to do our stuff